Hi everyone, time for another programming lesson. If you remember last time, we were working on our EA, which is coming there, it's coming along. But we had an issue to do with this function here, the modify order stop loss. And the issue was that sometimes, in fact most times, for most ticks, the stop loss value won't have changed. And the reason being that we're at the moment trailing on an n-bar trail. So for most ticks within a bar, the lowest low of the last 5 bars isn't going to be any different. And the order modify function doesn't like it if you're trying to change an order, but actually to set the stop loss to the same value as it was before. Okay, so what we need to do is change this code, and I asked you for your homework to think about how you might do that. So I'm going to show you now. Okay, so let's think about this. Okay, so the stop loss we're trying to change to is the variable SL. The stop loss that it is already is order stop loss. Okay, so what we want to know is have they changed? So let's take the difference between the two. Okay, and we'll see if that is greater than 0. Now the thing you've got to watch out for is one will be bigger than the other, so it may be different by 2 ticks, but it may be plus 2 ticks or minus 2 ticks. And in order to get around this, there's a function, a maths function called maths_abs. It's taking the absolute value. For those of you familiar with mathematical terms, that means the value which is always positive. So it's just the size of it. So minus 2 pips will have the absolute value of plus 2 pips. And plus 3 pips will have the absolute value of plus 3 pips. So basically, it makes it so it's always positive. Okay, so the positive difference between these two values, we want to make sure that's greater than the minimum fluctuation, which is, if you remember, this variable point. Okay, so if that is true, so let's make this into an if statement, and then we want to go ahead and do our modification. Okay, so there we go. Just check how this reads. So you've selected the ticket. We check that the change is actually a positive value. Then, if it is, then we're going to do our modification. And if the modification succeeds, then we will return true. Now, there's an interesting question here: is what do we want to return if there's no change? This may seem pointless, but it's one of the things you need to think about in the general design of your code. Is this modified trailing stop code returns true if it's successfully managed to modify the code. So you can see here, if I've managed to modify it, I'm setting success to true, and that's returning that value. So the question is what you want to signal if you didn't need to change it. Okay, for now I'm going to leave it as it is, which means that if I didn't need to change it, I'm going to return false. And at the moment, we're not actually using the return value, so it doesn't really matter. It's one of these things which, as you get more experience with programming, you sort of tune into this, and you have to sort of think about, the general how you want your function to behave at the highest level. Okay, so let's check this compiles. It does indeed. Okay, now let's just check it works. What do we fancy? Let's just stick an EJ short on here. Check as a demo account. Yep, just make sure that's switched on. Let's just whack a short on there. Okay, there it is. And now let's find our code. Or obviously called my TrailingStop EA. Okay, let's drop this in, and there we go. We should see, there we are, the stop. That should be 5 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars back. There we go. Okay, so that's all working. Now, something I want to think about. This is your next homework. The way this is working, every single tick, it is going here, calling this function, and modifying the stop if necessary. Okay. Now, for the kind of trailing stop we're presently using, which is the trailing stop of the last n bars, okay, most ticks there will be nothing to do, and the reason being that if it's let's go look at the chart. If you're looking for the highest high of the last 5 bars, you only want to do that calculation once a bar when the bar's completed. So the rest of the time, you don't even want to do this. Now, we have changed our code now, so we're not going to try and modify the stop loss, but it's still very inefficient in that we're actually calling all this every single tick just to check that at this point, oh, we don't actually want to do anything. So what I want you to do is think about how you can do that, how you can modify the code so you don't actually even call this unless the barra is actually completed. Okay, and I'll give you a little clue. You need to look at the timestamp of the bar. Okay, so see if you can work it out from that. Okay, so a nice short lesson there. As always, any questions or comments, then do let me know. Okay, thanks then. Bye for now.